What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again. Week 6 of my favorite NFL DFS picks of the week. A few guys at every position I'm extremely high on. Think they can have huge games and go off in their matchups. So before we get going, the winner of last week's giveaway was Dylan Moon. He was actually the only person that entered in James Conner, who ended up being the highest scoring player on the main slate. So congrats to Dylan Moon for that giveaway. I will be doing more in the future, so definitely you guys have the opportunity to win on future giveaways. It's a fun way to kind of interact with you guys in that sense, and also give back for all the support that you've given me, so really appreciate it. And if you guys want to show some more support in this video, definitely slap up that like button. Let's try to get over 300 likes again on this one. We actually were able to hit over 400 likes on last week's video, so really great stuff. Thank you a lot. And if you happen to be new here to the channel, how to be entered in these giveaways in the future, I will be doing my next one at 7,000 subscribers, and we're currently at 6,200. So if you want to be a part of that and kind of speed up the process, you can definitely subscribe. And if you want to just get this NFL DFS content and advice and just guys that kind of bounce off you guys that I'm really high on, it's definitely good to subscribe to continue to get these videos for the remainder of the season. Also, we get NBA DFS right around the corner. It's a week away from when I'm recording this now on Tuesday, the 9th. It's actually starting the 16th, opening night, so I'm super excited about that and to give you guys some advice on those slates as well. So if you guys want that good content, definitely subscribe. But let's get into it. Enough of me rambling on. Andy Dalton is going to be my first quarterback at 6,300. Going against Pittsburgh here, really good matchup. Can definitely turn into a shootout between the Bengals and Steelers. The Steelers defense has definitely not been good. They're allowing the second most passing yards to quarterbacks and the most passing touchdowns of any defense. And the way you attack this Steelers defense is with the passing game. I mean, their run defense has been pretty solid. They're actually graded out as the second best running defense in football by Pro Football Focus. And their pass coverage is aided by Joe Hayden, who's like past his prime. He's their best cornerback. The other guys aren't very good. So I think they can definitely get the better of them with guys like Tyler Boyd, who's playing really well this year. John Ross, maybe if he's back, and give him a little bit of a boost. And also AJ Green is playing really well, and he can give them definitely some dominant production. So at 6,300. I think Andy Dalton can get back to what he was doing in week 2, week 3, week 4, over 20 DraftKings points. Close to 25 DraftKings points is definitely sustainable in this possible shootout. They're implied 28 points, and I think a lot of that will be coming from the passing game, considering how good their run defense has been for the Steelers. So that's my first quarterback. And for my second guy, Jared Goff. He's been playing at an MVP level this year, putting up a ton of big performances. He was kind of screwed over from Todd Gurley last week, getting 3 rushing touchdowns. So that kind of slowed him down. But he definitely has that upside in any matchup to go off and throw for a lot of yardage and just get a couple of touchdowns here and there. So against this Denver defense, it's not the same stingy defense you think of for Denver nowadays. Like, they got Sam Darnold roasting them last week, Isaiah Correll running over them for 200 yards. So it's not the same unit. And their pass coverage has actually been pretty weak outside of Chris Harris. Like, Roby has been struggling on the outside, and also Pac-Man Jones has been struggling a good amount. So I think Goff, with this Rams offense, one of the best offenses and one of the best schemes with Sean McVay, can definitely scheme against this Rams defense and beat him in any way like McVay kind of wants to. And honestly, if they just have one of Brandon Cooks or Cooper Kupp back, I really like Goff. And if both of them are back, Goff would be definitely even more, I'd be more confident in him against this Broncos defense. And also, their one strength of the Broncos, I would say, is their pass rush with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. But the Rams, they have one of the best offensive lines in football, so that kind of takes away from that. So Jared Goff in for another big week, I think, here against the Broncos. And for my last quarterback, Jameis Winston, I think he's going to be pretty chalky this week, pretty popular. But he's a really good price tag at 5,800 against one of the worst defenses in all of football. Atlanta has lost like half their defense due to injuries. So the Buccaneers should be able to move the ball pretty damn easily. And we know that they have one of the best like wide receiver trios in all of football with Godwin, D-Jax, and also Mike Evans. They can definitely get the better of this Atlanta defense. And also Cameron Brate and Winston have some good chemistry. So I think this could be a big game for Winston. He has a lot to prove this year. So the Buccaneers Buccaneers keep him around as their franchise quarterback. And this is going to be a prime shootout spot. I think the highest total of any game on the slate. 57.5 points, so a lot of points is to be had here for Winston. He'd be my favorite quarterback, not considering ownership. Maybe in GPP, not as much, because I think he's going to be highly owned because of the price tag and the high total and just the shootout potential. So that's my final quarterback, though. You got Jared Goff, Andy Dalton, and Jameis Winston are the three. And now for running back, James Conner on the Steelers team, the prime bell cow guy for this team. He got 25 touches last week. They were kind of taking away some touches week 2, week 3, and week 4. They weren't able to have that success running the ball against some stingy running defenses in Baltimore and Tampa Bay. Definitely not really what happened. I mean, not sure what happened against Kansas City. Pretty sure they did have some injuries to the offensive line though. But now they're fully healthy, and James Conner, he's back to his this absurd upside ways like he had in week 1, where he got 38, 37 here again in week 5 against Atlanta. And against the Bengals, their running defense is okay, but their pass coverage and just play from the linebacker position this year hasn't been very good. Like we saw Frank Gore and Kenyon Drake combined for 109 yards and just 18 carries. That's 6 yards per carry. So if they can do that with the worst offensive line than the Steelers, and I think Connor is honestly better than Frank Gore. Him and Kenyon Drake might be similar, but Connor has been playing better this year than Kenyon Drake. So I think if they can do that, then Connor can definitely do it as well. And also, Kenyon Drake got 7 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown there. And Drake wasn't really involved in the passing game like the first couple of weeks. So if Drake can do that, I think Connor can be very active in the receiving game here in this matchup. And this is the final game likely that before Le'Veon Bell comes back. They're expecting him to be back in week 8 after the bye. So James Conner, there's no reason for them not to run him into the ground and give him around 25, maybe even 30 touches here in this game and a possible shootout. So at 7,700, he's my favorite high salary guy. Obviously, Todd Gurley is always a good play, but at 10,000, it's kind of tough to build around that and tough for me to advise him with other kind of high price guys. So James Conner, he'd be my favorite kind of high price guy just based on the value that he kind of brings at that 7,700 price tag. And for my second running back though, TJ Yeldon here at 6,400. Recommended them last week. The same thing kind of goes. A really good opportunity with a ton of snaps that are possible without Leonard Fournette and now without Corey Grant, who's out for the year. They just signed Jamal Charles. But the thing is with that, I wouldn't expect Charles to be too involved. He didn't go through training camp or anything like that. He was staying in shape by himself. But they'd probably ease him into things, I would imagine, and Yeldon would still get a healthy amount of the snaps and the touches here, and definitely has the potential for a lot of catches here again against Dallas. And also Dallas is probably going to be without Sean Lee again here, who really adds who really boosts up their run defense, and without them the run defense struggles. And also their running back coverage isn't great without Sean Lee. We saw Alfred Blue get 8 catches I think for 70 yards last week. And Yeldon definitely has that ability in the backfield receiving. So I think really good value again here, 6,400. Can get around 20 DraftKings points. He's gotten that the last 2 weeks with a half game or a quarter of Fournette there, and then a full game without Fournette. So really good play again here. TJ Yeldon going back to the well. And for my third running back, Latavius Murray. I mean, the Vikings, they can't run the ball against anyone, but if there was a matchup for them to be able to run the ball, I think it's going to be against the Arizona Cardinals. So a really good game script here against Arizona. They're likely going to be down here against the Vikings. And Arizona, they can't keep any drives sustained. A lot of 3-and-outs, leading to a ton of plays for their opposing offense. So last week, Arizona had I don't even know how many 3-and-outs in the second half, but they had a lot of drives where they just couldn't keep drives going. And that led to 92 plays for San Fran. So the Vikings, they can get around maybe 70, high 60s for a play total, because the Cardinals, they're only running 50 plays per game. So that's going to give a lot of opportunities for a guy like Latavius Murray. The lead back by far. I think Dalvin Cook will be out again this week. There's no reason for them to rush him back against a terrible team like Arizona. So a really good game script, like I said, should be up. And might as well run him against a really bad run defense in Arizona that's allowing the most fantasy points per game on DraftKings to running back. So really good spot. Why not Latavius Murray? I'm expecting a 20 carry game for maybe 70, 80 yards and a touchdown. And that's a really good value at 4,700. So that's my third running back. And then for my fourth guy, Chris Carson, the Seahawks offense seems like they're trying to get back to like their Marshawn Lynch ways where they would just run the ball a ton. And Russell Wilson's barely throwing the ball. He had like 21 passing attempts last week. So they're going fully with the ground game here. And there's no reason for them not to do that here against Oakland, who's been giving up the fourth most rushing yards to running backs on the year. And he's been playing pretty solid so far this year, like yards per carry wise, besides this game against Dallas. He averaged 7.3, 4.0, and 6.1 against the Rams last week. And Oakland does have a worse running defense, I would say, compared to the Rams. So, like, those opportunities are really good. Rashard Penny didn't even get a snap last week, so it seems like he's out of the picture. And Carson is going to be that lead back here again, getting around maybe even close to 20 carries again here. So with that kind of usage and touchability in a game that they can definitely be up to 3-point favorites, like that's a really good value at 4,400. So that's my final running back. So Carson, Latavius Murray, James Conner, and TJ Yeldon are going to be the backs I'm looking at, and my favorite guys at running back. And we're going to go back to the well again here from last week. Julio Jones, you let me down, but you better make up for it this week against Tampa Bay. Like the worst secondary probably, I would say. They had Mitch Trubisky like throwing for like 80-yard passes every play last time they were out on defense. And like there's nothing they really could do over the bye week because they got the guys they have at cornerback. Like they're not going to get any better over the bye. And Julio Jones, he's probably going to go to town, I think, in this matchup. Going against Tampa Bay. He let us down last week. I believe he had 0 catches in the first 3 quarters. And I'm guessing he's not too happy about that. He'll probably ask for some more work. And when he's quiet for a week, normally he bounces back. Like we saw week 1, the guy went off. He had 31 DraftKings points. And then he was quiet against Carolina and the Saints. They kind of had Lattimore shadow him against the Saints. So that's a little bit understandable. But against Tampa Bay, who the hell are they going to shadow him with? Like Brent Grimes. He's well past his prime. Their second cornerback isn't very good. So Julio Jones, I think he's just bound to go off here in this match. And against Tampa Bay last year, the guy went for 12 catches, for 12 grabs, for 253 yards, for 2 touchdowns. If that makes any sense. I kind of said that weird. 12 catches for 253 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that was just in one game against Tampa Bay and like a shootout kind of atmosphere there as well. So he's going to bounce back, I think, here. Has huge potential. They're implied 30 points. So you think they'd get Julio Jones more involved here. So a really good play there at 7,900 in a bounce back spot. And people might be kind of scared away from him for him letting us down last week. And now for Juju Smith-Schuster. I just love him a lot here based on how I think things will work out for the Steelers offense. They got William Jackson the outside, the cornerback for Cincinnati. He's pretty solid. He actually did a really good job against Antonio Brown last year in the game that I watched. He was kind of covering him pretty well, not really allowing much separation for him. So that's kind of, I think, going to like funnel more things in to James Conner, like I mentioned before, and also Juju as Denard, their slot cornerback, who has actually been allowing the most yards out of all Bengals cornerbacks. So Juju, who plays primarily in the slot here, I think can have a good game and bounce back from the usage he got last week. It was kind of a blowout, it turned out to be, in the second half, and they didn't really need him that much because they were scoring quickly, and James Conner was really effective on the ground. So they didn't need him as much, but I think they'll need him a little bit more here with that good coverage on Antonio Brown from William Jackson. And honestly, without Le'Veon Bell, Juju has been a lot better as a fantasy wide receiver. So the final game without Le'Veon, I think he'll go off here again and get like around 10 targets, which he was getting the first couple of weeks. Last week was kind of an anomaly because Atlanta couldn't keep up with him. But I think Cincinnati can keep this game close and keep them passing. And then, like I said, things will funnel in the Juju. So that's my second wide receiver. And for my third guy, we got to go back to him. I think you got to trust him this week just because the upside is so good. And that makes him a good DFS play. Maybe in season-long leagues, you don't want to trust him because you could lose if he drops another goose egg. But Amari Cooper here at 5,200. I mean, he's been very on and off, but there's kind of some reasoning behind that, I would think, but just based on the matchups that he's done bad in. So against LA, the Chargers, that is, last week, he only had 1 target, 1 catch, but that was because the Chargers kind of schemed him out. They had Casey Hayward shadow him again. Hayward has had Amari Cooper's number in his career, so that's kind of understandable. I wasn't too surprised by that. that Cooper struggled in that matchup. And against Miami, Howard, the cornerback for Miami, is pretty solid. He covered Cooper pretty well in that matchup. A little bit more surprised by that one, I would say, that he wasn't able to get a little bit more. But still, the shadow coverage did him in. And then against the Rams, he had to face Aqib Talib and a healthy Marcus Peters, who can be solid some games. He's very on and off, but he does have the ability to have some lockdown games. So Amari Cooper, I think he can cut in the slack for that last week. And he does have the upside, though, in some of these matchups. Like against Cleveland, had an extremely good game, 29 DraftKings points, and I think he can have the upside here again. Against the Seattle team that really has no one that can shadow Amari Cooper and just take him out of the game. And also Seattle is more well-suited to cover tight ends and limit a guy like Jared Cook with the good coverage of a guy like Bobby Wagner. And their safety play hasn't been bad. So just more opportunities, I think, come in the way of Amari Cooper, who actually came out and said that he was mad that he only got one target last week. So it seems like John Gruden, when he schemes for games, it's just all right, I got to get one guy more involved. Like Jared Cook has huge games, and then kind of Jordan Nelson has a huge game. I think this can be a game where they kind of scheme up and get Amari Cooper more opportunities, and he's going to go off, I think, honestly, in this spot. So 5,200, like the price tag, and love the upside of that guy. More in GPP, definitely, just considering how his floor is very low. But for my final wide receiver, this is only if Cooper Kupp or Brandon Cooks is out, but a guy to keep on your radar is Josh Reynolds. Kind of track those injuries of a guy like Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks. Like I said, if one of them out, Josh Reynolds is an immediate great value play at 3,900 and a good Rams offense without a guy that really gets a lot of targets in either Brandon Cooks or Cooper Kupp, and he was pretty solid in the limited opportunities he got after those two guys went out last week. So really good value there. Keep him on your radar as my final wide receiver. And now for tight ends, I'm going to be biting the chalk and kind of be talking about guys that will probably be pretty highly owned and popular, but I think they're too good not to mention. And Cameron Brate, without O.J. Howard, just the opportunity is going to be so much greater. He'll be getting the majority, if not all, of the snaps here. And without O.J. Howard in 2016, Brate was a really good fantasy tight end. He was the tight end 7 and all tight end, averaging 11.4 fantasy points per game. And Atlanta, their linebacker play, a lot of injuries, safeties, a lot of injuries. So Brate can definitely beat those guys in coverage over the middle of the field. And him and Jameis Winston have good chemistry. I've had it in the past. So I think he could have a really solid game. Go for around 15, maybe even more drafting points in a shootout atmosphere, like I mentioned here with this Atlanta-Tampa Bay game. So that's my favorite tight end. But he's going to be really chalky, I would imagine. But I'm going to bite the chalk with him. And also a guy like David Njoku, who will probably be less popular, but he still has good upside, just considering the opportunities going up with Baker Mayfield in at quarterback. Seems like Mayfield just trusts him and likes to throw to him a lot more than Tyrod Taylor did. And also just getting him some more beneficial kind of opportunities where he's getting more yards per catch and stuff like that. And also Rashard Higgins just got hurt, who was being pretty solid for the Browns the last couple of weeks. So that can free up some more targets as well. So 11 targets, playing a lot of snaps and just getting a lot of opportunities. He ran the third most routes out of all tight ends last week. So the opportunity is definitely there. 3,800. Chargers have really good outside cornerback coverage, so that could limit a guy like Jarvis Landry when he goes on the outside, and also Callaway could be limited, so that just kind of opens things up for David Njoku, similar to the matchup last week against Baltimore. So that's my second tight end. And for my third tight end, Austin Hooper in that same game, Tampa Bay against Atlanta. Tampa Bay really bad against tight ends, allow a ton of fantasy points to them, and Hooper has kind of been playing a lot better here this year and just getting a lot more opportunities with him running the fourth most amount of routes last week. Last year, he kind of split work with another tight end, which limited him, but now that he's getting a majority of the snaps, getting some more targets and just some more opportunities in this shootout game and going against Tampa Bay, who really struggle to cover tight ends. So that's my final tight end. Definitely chalky, like I said. Popular guys probably, but still really good values with Njoku, Brate, and Hooper there to save some money at tight end and pay up for those guys at wide receiver, running back, and even quarterback. And now for defense, the first one I'm looking at is the Chicago Bears. I'm not sure where they're priced down so much at 3,300. This is a really good matchup against Miami. Tannehill has looked really bad the last two games, and I just don't think the Miami can do what they want to do in this matchup. I mean, they've been trying to run the ball. Well, they did last week. They ran the ball pretty successfully, which kind of helped them a little bit with their offense. But the Bears have a really good run defense and a really good pass rush. So I think Tannehill can probably will probably like poop his pants in this matchup. They'll get a few sacks and possibly get a pick or two here off Tannehill, who's been playing really bad the last couple weeks. So I think the Bears, really good value. Probably been playing as the best defense of the first 4 games, so there's no reason why they shouldn't be on your radar at 3,300. Then the Ravens, another underrated, really good defense. The DraftKings points haven't been there, but I still think they can get it done here again going against Tennessee. Marcus Mariota playing really bad this year, besides that one game against Philly. But Baltimore has a much better defense than Philly, at least in pass coverage. I don't really see Titans moving the ball that well, especially through the air. I think a guy like Corey Davis could be limited, and then kind of letting Marcus Mariota really have no one to throw to. So at 2,800, really good value, cheap defense that can pick off Mariota once or twice, force him to get sacked. And this is really solid defense at a cheap price tag. And for my final defense, this is this kind of hinges, I don't know the word I'm looking for. It just kind of goes on how bad Blake Bortles looked last week. He was forcing the ball left and right, some head-scratching plays from him. That can definitely lead to another game where he turns the ball over a good amount of times against the Cowboys defense, which is pretty solid. They actually played pretty well without Sean Lee last week, so I think they could get a pick or two, like I said. Blake Bortles definitely can force some balls. You never know what kind of Blake Bortles you're going to get, but if you get that bad Blake Bortles at 2,300 for that defense, that's a really good value. And so I think that's a really good spot for the Cowboys. Probably more GPP in case you get the great Blake Bortles that somehow remembers how to play quarterback. But if he doesn't remember how to play quarterback again this week, extremely good upside at that price tag. So that is the final defense and the final guy or just play of the week. So I hope you guys enjoyed it this week. Week 6, my favorite NFL DFS plays. Be sure to drop a like if you did enjoy it. Like I said, over 300 likes would be great. I would really appreciate that. And if you happen to be new here, like I mentioned, definitely subscribe to be a part of these giveaways in the future. Get this good advice and just kind of get some of my information on what I'm thinking. You can just even take this as like guys that you might like, but you might want to pivot off just because of ownership or just kind of just if you don't agree with me or something like that. And you can comment any questions you might have below in the video. You can follow me on Twitter at MoneyWebby for any more personal questions. I have my DMs open if you want to ask me a longer question there on Twitter, or if I might tweet out like an updated play or something like that if someone gets hurt. But that is it. Thank you for sticking around. If you're here at this point, good luck this week with your lineups and stuff. I hope you win some money. We'll see you back here again next time.